Hey, everybody. I'm glad Kevin went ahead of me so I can drop some F-bombs, because that usually is like, that's sort of the breaking point for me, whether I can bring my maritime sailor accent or, if I have to sort of pretend to be, a proper Vancouverite. So just quickly, it was awesome bringing up that point about checks. If you don't want checks, because probably the only reason most of you have checks is to pay your rent. Is that right? Anyone? Mainly pay your rent? Yeah, thought so. Well, we solved that problem, but I'm not here today to talk about what we do. I'm here to talk to you guys about fundraising. How many people in here are working for a company or run a company that is looking for money right now? How many of you people that don't have your hands in the air are lying to me right now? I know you're all looking for money. Don't pretend I'm up here trying to get money. No, just joking. But sort of. Always be closing. That is the number one rule of a startup. If you haven't been taught that rule, you have not gone through the school of hard knocks, and I highly recommend it. So most people think of the fundraising process like this. There's you, lonely guy, girl at a computer in a coffee shop, hanging out, doing your thing. You find a co-founder that you really love. You ask your friends and family for money. Nothing better than going to dad and mom and being like, Dad, Mom, I've got this great idea that you don't understand. I'm going to eliminate the check. Fuck you, Andrew. My dad's a senior vice president at RBC, or was retired. Now moved to the Caribbean. Banks make too much money. Then you go to angel investors. So you find your parents' friends, you go to them, and you say, hey, guys, my parents gave me some money. Give me some money. Fuck you, Andrew. And then you get money from them. Everything's going really well. And typically, you go to venture capitalists. Venture capital is typically the way to do it. You go seed A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If you're Uber, do they go double A, double B, double C, double D? Like what stage is Uber at now? How big is the taxi industry? $64 billion valuation. In 2005, the whole taxi industry was $65 billion. So how does that make sense? So, the way of fundraising is interesting. The way that people have done it. Now, as I mentioned, friends and family, close family member, BCSC lets you raise money up to 50 investors from a family member, close personal friend, or close business associate. And this is a really important time in your career in fundraising. Because when you get to those later stages, the first thing, or one of the first things that VC is going to ask you, or that angel investor, do you have skin in the game? Does your family have skin in the game? When I started my first company, I was 16, and I didn't have any money. Like, what do you mean? I don't have any money. Just give me money. It's okay. My dad gave me money. It's cool. Get your parents, get your friends, get your family. If you believe in your business, you'll ask them for money. It doesn't matter how much. It doesn't matter if it's $5 or $50,000 or $500,000. Ask your friends and family for money, because that's going to make the next stage, obviously angel and accredited investors, a lot easier. Because you can say, I have skin in the game. My family's put skin in the game. You look at RentMoola, I swear I've asked every single family member for money. Even like my broke-ass uncle, I'm like, just give me some money, man. Come on, just put it in. He's like, I'm here to ask you for money. Like, that's okay. It's okay. We're friends here. And the BCSC, if you guys are raising money, accredited investor basically includes financial institutions, registered advisors, dealers, pension funds. You can do mutual funds. Basically, if you know people that have at least $1 million in financial assets or net income before taxes over $200,000, you're in a pretty good shape to ask them for money. So if you're not sure if they do, just ask them. It'll be fine. And the more they have, the better. Next stage, seed, Series A, you got VCs. And this is where my presentation takes a little bit of a different turn. So how many of you have pitched a VC? Really? That few? That's it? Weird. I don't know. Is there something about Vancouver where you guys we don't pitch VCs? We don't have enough VCs? That's crazy. Everyone in a startup should pitch a VC at least once. If you want to feel bad about yourself, it's the best way. My company's making a lot of money. Why does it suck? Fuck you, Andrew. I don't know why. It's just every stage. But it works out really well. So the thing about a VC is, there's pros and cons. There's You get all the money you need up front with all the strings you don't know what to read about in the contract. Wait, you're just going to give me money. What do I need like a 30-page contract for? Don't worry about it, Andrew. It's okay. So there are different options. I mean, there's a few tips that I can give you if you're going into a VC. I've worked with VCs. I've worked for VCs. Don't give up the farm. Be patient and don't take the first deal. The first thing that most startups do when they get a term sheet, they're like, yes, I've got a term sheet. Like, oh, this is huge. Like, yeah, they just bought 90% of your company. And you're fucking fired. Sorry. I'm just following Kevin's lead. Next thing, interview your VCs. Don't sell. Treat this as a marriage. You are going to be working with these people for a long time. Hopefully not too long because you sell and you make millions and everything's great. But if you're like Uber, you're going to be working with them for a long time and you're going to be asking them for money over and over and over again. You don't want to be married to someone you don't like. Trust me, my dad did it 3 times. Sorry, that was a banker joke. Come on, guys. Equity crowdfunding is fairly new in Canada. RentMoola, we've raised about $8 million today. We did $5 million in our last round through equity crowdfunding. You can use a bunch of different exemptions, and basically that's making your customers, your partners, your investors, and that makes them support your business more. I mean, who doesn't want to support a business that they've invested in, and they get really excited about it? I mean, I see Sean's here from Fund Funder. That's a really great example of a platform where you can raise money. It's less dilutive, and you can get a better valuation. So better valuation, not so much drag along, tag along, big contracts, and it gives you a little more freedom. You can do that in 3 ways: through accredited investors, kind of the angel, friends, and family I talked about before. The offering memorandum, which is the exemption we use. You write a big document, you work with some lawyers and accountants, and you create a document. You can raise money from pretty much anyone. I'm going to get Sean to talk about that after. So if you have any questions about that, talk to me or Sean. And then the crowdfunding exemption, which is relatively new here in BC, but you can basically raise a maximum of $250,000 twice a year with a maximum investment of $1,500. So couple different ways that you can raise money now that if you don't want to have to go pitch that VC are very viable options. And I know I'm out of time, so questions?
It's been reported to me that if you do some crowdfunding, it's really hard to get VC to get funding for the next round because there's so many shareholders involved.
That is a good, what's that? Oh. So is it harder to get VC funding after doing crowdfunding or basically any kind of funding that has a lot of investors? The answer to that is no. It's a good excuse from VCs because your cap chart actually isn't that messy. Yes, there's more shareholders, but typically they own less of the company. So they don't, if you have an investor that owns a large portion of the company, they can prevent you from doing things. They're going to ask for board seats, stuff like that. If you have investors, a good lawyer, you have a good shareholders agreement, then VCs understand that and you can have a really clean cap table because people are paying appropriate amounts. It's all typically common shares. You don't typically do confusing share structures and stuff like that. So for VCs, if they want to invest in you, it doesn't matter.
Questions at the back? Yep.
When do you ask for that money?
When do you ask for that money? Good question. ABC, always be closing. So, I mean, from the time you start, you should always be pitching. Your 30-second pitch should be ingrained every time you go in an elevator, literally. Every time, you're waiting for a bus or a taxi. From the time that you know that you need money, you should be asking for it. And the earlier, the better. I mean, the best time to be asking for money is when you have money and you don't need it. VCs really like when you have a few $1 million in the bank and you're asking them for money because they know that they're not, funding your salary or, just preventing you from going bankrupt, because that's bad.
Any other questions at the back?
Question at the front?
So I'm about to close the 3rd round of funding with the VC, and I think, crowdfunding sounds great in the sense that the VC that I'm about to sign with is multi-million-dollar deal and they're taking 25%, which is a good deal for a VC. But maybe crowdfunding can get me a better deal, but I'm getting a lot of experience from the VCs. That's the thing. They've been in the game for a long time. They know how to get a company to IPO and everything. That's not something we can see from crowdfunding.
Not necessarily. So I'm not suggesting that you go with crowdfunding necessarily. It's a really good option. So VCs don't take that many, and if you find a really good partner, it's a fantastic way to go because you have all the money that you need right up front. Where with crowdfunding, you can raise a different valuation. So maybe you raise the first million at, say, $10 million valuation. You can raise the second million at a $20 million valuation, the third million at a $30 million valuation. Where the VC at the $10 million valuation, they're going to give you $3 million, which is tough. But if you find a really good partner that adds that exponential value, and you'll find that when you start interviewing VCs instead of pitching VCs, which you probably started doing, they're going to start talking about the ways that they can add value. And you'll see that a lot with VCs, that they're selling you. They're saying, hey, this is what I can do for you. This is how I can make your company better. Because remember, they're going to make a lot of money off you when you IPO or when you have a liquidity event. So that's why it's a mutual thing. And I think a lot of people that are in startups go to a VC and it's sort of like, please give me money, please give me money. I got my friends and family involved and now I need money. And then, that's when they sort of say, okay, well, sell me why I should give you money. But if you start interviewing them, you get those kind of deals. You get them where they're adding value. And you got to make sure that they're aligned. So, when you're looking at VCs, you want to find VCs that have experience in your industry or have connections in the industry. Who do you want to know? It's like, I need to know all the building owners and property managers in North America. VC, how can you help me? Or my customers are, someone like the tech community. Who knows the whole tech community? They'd be a great VC. Last question. Make it a doozy. Make me sweat. Anybody?
Last question. Anyone in the back?
My dad, when I was 16, he actually helped me finance my first truck. I had a landscaping company, and it was pretty interesting because I went to go buy a truck while he was away on vacation in Florida. Yeah, I wasn't there. And so I went to buy a truck, but being 16 and really smart, I was like, I'm going to finance the shit out of this thing. So I go and ready to sign the papers, like, we're not going to give you any money. Can you even drive? And I was like, I can drive. And my dad actually financed the truck, signed the documents for me to finance the truck. So that was kind of good. And ended up selling the business and paying him back, and he got a return. So when it came time for my second business, he helped me out there. And then my third business, he said, Andrew, you're 20 years old and you have your own house. Are you a drug dealer? And I said, maybe. No, just joking. But he didn't give me any more money after that. But he's been really supportive. Like, once you get into the bigger checks, asking my dad for like $5,000 or $10,000. He did work for a big 5 bank, so, it's like, hey, Dad, do this equity investment. He's like, I want 25%.